Good morning, everyone, or I should say good afternoon, with an afternoon game that was scheduled, and welcome to the Football Alumni of Michigan Virtual Tailgate, produced in partnership with the University of Michigan Alumni Association and co-sponsored this week by the clubs from Washington, D.C., Lansing, Flint, and of course, Tidewater, Virginia. My name is Bruce Motte. I was the longtime public relations director for the athletic department, and I'm very honored to host this series that we've been doing this year. And we've been doing a lot of things and having a lot of fun, bringing in some greats of the past. And today we have a number of greats from the past that we're going to be talking to. Before we get started with the people that we do have on, we were supposed to have Dwight Hicks on, and unfortunately Dwight couldn't make it, but Dwight did send this video message. So let's run that video.
Hey, Michigan fam. How are you all? Hope you're having a good day. Hope you're safe and well. Thank you for the invitation to be a part of this. I'm sorry that I can't be there physically or virtually in person, but I'm sure you guys will be well and have a good time. I look forward to rescheduling and coming on and talking to the alumni of Michigan and chopping it up with you guys. Have a great time. Go Blue, and I'll see you in the near future.
Well, Dwight Hicks was definitely one of our greats, and there's no doubt about it. We have a couple of our greats that are going to be on with us today. We're going to have Jehu Chesson on and Jim Brandstatter. But before we get to those two, they're going to jump on during the broadcast. But right off the bat, we have Dan Deerdorf. And Carlos, if you'd run that on Dan, we can go from there and start talking with Dan and get some questions in and have some fun with him on this virtual tailgate.
Oh, God.
Why did Pearson's return set up a Don Moorhead touchdown and a 21-12 Wolverine lead over top-ranked Ohio State.
A teammate of mine from the 69 and 70 team at Michigan, an All-American at Michigan, a Hall of Honor winner at the University of Michigan, and an NFL Hall of Famer, great football player, and good friend, Dan Deerdorf.
I'm still looking out here at Michigan Stadium going, is this real? I don't I'm looking. I've done Super Bowls, I've done many NFL playoff games. I'm looking forward to this game more than any of those.
He elevates and snags that ball out of the air with his right hand. That is one of the great catches in Michigan football history. I am not falling victim to hyperbole. I'm telling you, that's one of the greatest catches in Michigan history.
Dan, welcome, and I'm glad you're on the virtual tailgate today. And I kind of wish we were doing this from Michigan Stadium today, but unfortunately we're not doing it from there. And, I guess the first question I have is that, you're going back into the radio booth and, you won the Pete Rozelle Radio TV Award as one of the great commentators of all time for the NFL and on television. What was it like for you to come back and do Michigan? I mean, that had to be, you said it was special and it was different. You've done the Super Bowls. Do you still feel that way today? And I mean, how excited do you get to watch our games as compared to what you used to have with the NFL?
Well, I'd spent 43 consecutive years in an NFL stadium every weekend of the fall. 13 as a player, 30 years as a broadcaster. I never did a studio show or anything like that. I was on site at a game for 43 consecutive years. And, during that span, I had forgotten how much fun it is to be on a college campus on a Saturday afternoon, specifically Ann Arbor, Michigan, the big house, my alma mater, just being around these kids. And it's been invigorating for me. I had no intention of doing it. When I retired from TV back in 2013, I'd never anticipated ever walking into a broadcast booth ever again, other than to maybe say hi to Brandy. But Dave Brandon, Brandstatter talked me into it, and I've been a prisoner ever since.
Well, it's exciting, and we're getting Brandy queued up here in just 2 seconds. And, you know, when you come in and you take a look at playing in the pros and playing college, tell me, I mean, it's always different, but what was the biggest difference for you from going from college to the pros?
Well, it was kind of a little bit like when you leave high school and you end up, you're on a college campus, and the first time you walk in that locker room, you know, the guys look so much older because obviously in college they're 3 and 4 years older. Well, do that and do it in a multiple. You walk into a locker room and you're 21 years old, and there are 34 and 35-year-old guys in there with kids that are in high school, and you're going, wow, this is really, really different. And that was just one aspect of what makes it different, but it's the acceleration of everything. In the NFL, everything is so much faster. There are no excuses. There are no, I'm sorry, but I got to go to class. I didn't get a chance to study. No, there's none of that. You're a professional and you're supposed to act like it.
You know, speaking of professionals, I got to get Jim to unmute himself so we can get him in here, because we got Brandstatter up here and get you guys talking a little bit about football. But I think before we get Jim in, now let's introduce Jim first. Let's run the piece about Jim. We already ran it on Dan. Let's show Jim Brandstatter first.
Larry Sippa under center in a balanced line. Sippa rolls out to the right, pitches off to Taylor, and Taylor's to the 20, down to the 15, down to the 10, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, touchdown, Billy Taylor!
There are a few changes up here in the broadcast booth for Michigan football. First of all, my name is Jim Brandstatter, and I am sliding over to the play-by-play chair so capably filled by Frank Beckman over the past number of years, and I am delighted and thrilled, and I'm excited for the opportunity.
Rudock back to throw, looks, throws deep, that ball is caught! What a catch inside the 20 by Darboh! Wow. I mean, this is Odell Beckham-like.
And let's welcome Jim Brandstatter. And now, you know, the way this is set up, I'm in between you two guys again today. That's amazing, doing the stats and spotting for you guys. I have Brandstatter normally on my left and Dan on my right. And so before I get into it, tell me a little bit, Dan, when you got Jimmy as your play-by-play guy, okay, and you were working together, how much fun have you guys had up there? I mean, it looks to me like you guys are having a blast.
Well, we are. We have to talk over you snoring in between us. So, first of all, we're handicapped in that regard. How often does this ever happen to anybody? Where, you know, I had a chance not only to come back to my alma mater, but I get a chance to work with, you know, two things. One of the best friends I have in the world, and secondly, someone that I've known since he was 18 and I was 19. And that was a long time ago. And it just doesn't happen that way, that, you know, Jim and I get to spend, well, dare I say, some of the golden years together in the broadcast booth.
Jim, it's got to be fun for you just having Dan with you.
We are, as Dan said, we're kind of in our golden years. We're kind of both on the back nine of our careers. But I got to tell you, for me, I couldn't have it, coming to an end without a better partner. I mean, Dan is the best. I mean, when Dan says we've known each other since we're 18, 19 years old, that's a fact. I mean, we were just kids, and we followed each other's career. I was in St. Louis when Dan played his last professional football game. Bunch of guys went down there and we got sideline passes, and we were there when Dan played his last game. When Dan did Monday Night Football and I was doing Lions, we would always try to catch up either in the booth or somewhere. And we followed each other's careers, and to have at the end of our careers come together to do this, man, it's like Christmas morning every game.
You know, before we start talking about this year's team and trying to, talk about what's going on there, talk about how you got to Michigan. And Dan, you've got a great couple of stories going. I mean, how you were recruited by Bo. Why don't we start with Dan first? We'll go with Dan and then get to Jimmy.
Well, I've told this so many times, but you know, I was recruited and took my share of recruiting trips. It's just at the end of those recruiting trips, people wouldn't offer me a scholarship. That if I'd have had feelings, they would have been hurt. But you know, Ohio State didn't offer me. Michigan State didn't offer me, and I ended up at the University of Michigan. I'll always believe somebody backed out on a scholarship at the last minute. I think I literally came in the back door. But yes, I was recruited by Miami of Ohio. And I remember sitting across the desk from their head coach going, well, this guy's crazy. There's no way I'm going to play for this guy. Get me out of here. I couldn't get out of Oxford, Ohio quick enough. And when you know it, 2 years later, guess who's in Ann Arbor?
Oh.
Oh, that's exactly right. And my life was never the same.
Jim, you came from a different background. You had Spartans all over you. Tell us about that.
It was weird because I never thought I was going to be going to Michigan. And when I was a high school senior, we played at Ann Arbor Pioneer. And the next day, Michigan was playing Duke. Dan, it was your freshman year. I think they were playing Duke in Ann Arbor. Duke was recruiting me, so they came over and watched me at Pioneer. And Chuck Vondy, who is one of the Bump Elliott's coaches, was recruiting a guy on Pioneer's team. And he came over to recruit that guy or watch him. And I was playing against him, and I had a nice night against him. Well, 3 days later, Chuck Vondy shows up in East Lansing and says, would you be interested in going to Michigan? And they didn't recruit me at all because they thought I was for sure going to Michigan State. And I said, yeah, I'd love to. Well, I came to take a visit to Ann Arbor, and I was luckily, because I would have never come if Deerdorf were my guest host. But I came to Ann Arbor. Mike Hankwitz, who is now the defensive coordinator at Northwestern, Jim Mandich, both, you know, I met them both, and Dave Denson, who was a center on one of those Michigan teams back then, were kind of my hosts on campus. I fell in love with Ann Arbor. I fell in love with the campus. I fell in love with the university, fell in love with Michigan Stadium, all of it. And from that point on, it was like, if you guys offer me a scholarship, I can't sign it quick enough.
You know,
Jim Mandich was my host when I was on my recruiting trip.
The great Jim Mandich.
The great Jim Mandich, who was a year older than I, and he took so much time with me to talk me into coming to Michigan. He walked me into the Union, handed me $5 and said, "Get lost." and he took off with some girl, and I was going, "Wow, I feel really special."
Well, hey, you know, and I know Hank was a whole lot different than Mandich.
Oh yeah, Hank was a nice guy.
Yeah, yes, he was. The only other thing that we'll tell you, Bruce, about our recruiting days is there were legendary stories of the players who were recruited by Garvey Craw and Dick Calderazzo. And I will just leave it at that.
The stories there from Bo, from that era, are unbelievable. And, you know, Dan, you were recruited and, you know, with Bump there and then coming to Bo. I mean, the recruiting, I think, must have changed quite a bit when Bo got in there.
Well, Bump Elliott, I just got to tell you a story. When he came to my house in Canton, Ohio, and he sat in our living room with myself and my mom and my dad, when he got in his car, I'll never forget, he's backing down the driveway, and I see him pull out into the street, and I turned to my mother and father, who both almost simultaneously said, "Well, that's where you're going to school. That's the nicest man I've ever met in my life."
And
of course, if you knew Bump Elliott, you knew they were telling the truth.
And that is absolutely the way Bump recruited, because when I was recruited, Bump did the same thing. He came into our house, sat in our living room, and he's there for half an hour. He said maybe 3 words to me. The rest of the time he was talking to my dad about the old Michigan State game, my mom about her cooking and the fact that the Michigan State and the campus and how she graduated and how mom and dad met, all this stuff. And when he left, he looked and turned to me, he says, Jim, it's a pleasure to meet you and your family. We think you're good enough to play at Michigan. We hope you take a good look at our campus. That was it. And I'm thinking, aren't you supposed to pat my back and tell me how great I am? He didn't do that. He recruited my mom and dad, but my mom and dad, both Spartans, they knew I made the right decision when I chose Ann Arbor.
Well,
I was really fortunate to be intertwined with both of the Elliott brothers. Obviously, I played for Bump at Michigan, and he's the reason I went to Michigan. But then his brother Pete was an assistant coach with the St. Louis Cardinals while I was a player with the Cardinals. And also, he was the executive director of the Pro Football Hall of Fame when I was elected and then inducted into the Hall. And I got to share that with Pete. So I was really fortunate to have my career, both collegiately and then professionally, kind of intertwined with the great Elliott brothers. That is Michigan football.
Amen.
Elliott, Bump, and Pete, what they meant to college football and what they meant to football. I mean, Bump, what he meant to the Big Ten. I mean, what he did at Iowa, he might have been one of the most influential individuals the Big Ten has ever seen. Would you agree with that, Dan?
Yes,
what he's done.
He really, people remember. It just depends on your age. Obviously, a lot of people only remember Bump as the athletic director at Iowa. And then, there's another subset of people that remember Bump as the coach at Michigan. And then, there's a generation that's pretty much gone by now, but they would have remembered that Bump Elliott was a Heisman Trophy candidate. He was one of the best players in college football.
He was the architect with Fritz Chrysler of the Mad Magicians, national champions.
And we're going to talk a little bit about the 69 game, but he really had, Bo always said he was left with a very, very good team, right, Jim?
Yeah, absolutely. And here's one other thing, and Dan can talk about this. My freshman year and Dan's sophomore year, Michigan was 8-2 that year. They were a good football team. They lost the opener to California, and then they lost the last game. In between, they rolled up 8 straight wins. That was a good football team in 1968. And when Bo came in, and he admitted it, I give Bo a lot of credit, the cupboard certainly was not empty. And Bo just took what Bump left him, and the rest is history.
Well, I think all you have to know is when we beat Ohio State, Bo Schembechler gave Bump Elliott a game ball, because every single person on the field for Michigan that day was at Michigan because we went to Michigan to play for Bump Elliott. And Bo always appreciated that 69 team in the sense that we bought into what Bo was selling, but none of us were Bo's kids. None of us were people that he had recruited. We weren't at Michigan to play for Bo Schembechler. We were at Michigan to play for Bump Elliott. And you're right, that 69 team had 4 college football Hall of Fame players on it, more than Ohio State had. And every one of them recruited by Bump Elliott.
Talk about that 69 game. I mean, everybody talks about it, but I guess what's your biggest memory from that game, Dan?
The fact that we were able to pay off a debt. We got run out of Ohio Stadium the year before, embarrassed. And we spent an entire year contemplating a payback, and we did. We derailed what certainly would have been the national championship team of 1969. They were undefeated the year before in 68. They were undefeated coming into our game. I think their average, the closest game they had was like 30 points. And, we just I think all of us on that team think that that was kind of the beginning of the modern era of Michigan football. It wasn't us so much. It was Bo Schembechler that started his 10-year war with Woody, the sellouts and everything. And we'll always be immensely proud of having played a small role in that.
And I couldn't agree more, Bruce. And the one other thing I will say is that as a sophomore on that team, we took our cue from the Dan Deerdorfs, the juniors and seniors. Dan talks about it being a payback. Back in those days, freshmen weren't allowed to play. We watched that game. I watched that game from Chrysler Arena. And I was on the team, but we couldn't travel. Freshmen couldn't play. But during that 69 season, when we beat Iowa and we came off the field, you could see it in the eyes of Mandich and Craw and Caldo and Dan, the juniors. It was payback time, and we wanted Ohio State. Nobody in the country wanted to play Ohio State. That was like walking into a guillotine, except us. And it was because they wanted payback, and us sophomores on that team took our cue from them to realize just how important and how emotional this was to pay back Woody for what happened in Columbus, and to kind of erase and give Ron Johnson, who was on that 68 team, a really key figure, wonderful man, great captain. He shouldn't have gone out the way he did. And that 69 team, they dedicated themselves, and it came down from the seniors and juniors to us sophomores that this was big.
Johnson was an unbelievable player. I mean, we could talk about him forever. One of the great running backs in Michigan history. There's no doubt about that.
Still holds the single game rushing record, does he not?
Yeah, he still holds it. He held it. He did it against Wisconsin in a rain day game that I think you'd remember quite well. Then, Dan, I think
I blocked for every one of those yards.
Yep.
I'm immensely proud of that. I was a sophomore, and I played every snap of that game, and that was fun.
You know, the other guy in that game, Dan and Bruce, that really did a great job was Garvey. He was the fullback on that team, and they had a really good linebacker. And I mean, Garvey wore him out all day long. And I thought Garvey and Ron Johnson were the MVPs of that game big time.
Just want to remind you what different era that was.
Say again?
That's back when we used to run the ball for a lot of yards against Wisconsin instead of the other way around.
Yeah, vice versa.
I want to remind everybody that you can submit questions, and please do submit the questions, and we'll try to get them on as quickly as we can. And a lot of the questions that we are getting is the questions that we're having right now is about this year's team. So, what I'd like to do, is let Jim and Dan kind of talk about this year's team. We've had a lot of changes in there.
We got a bad connection here, Bruce. I think I got to go.
Well, it's interesting because we had one individual called Mr. Kopp asked about, the records, and that Ohio State and Alabama have never had these type of records. Yes, they did. Every team goes through tough times, and to be taking a look at it, Jim's record has been good. It has been good. And this year is just one of those years. I call it an asterisk season because everything seems to be so goofy. Just odd with nobody at the games. It's hard to really understand. It reminds me, Jim and Dan, of the strike season in NFL football in the early 80s, where you're kind of looking at it going, what is this? So, I mean, how do you look at this season? I'll let Dan start off. Dan, how do you look at this?
Can I say something real quick?
Yes.
Please do.
No. This is nothing to do with this year's team, but in regards to rewriting history, some people say Alabama didn't have this, or Florida didn't have this, or nothing. I would like to remind people that it's been in my lifetime when Alabama went on probation and was near the death penalty in regards to their recruiting practices. So to suggest that this stuff doesn't happen in Alabama, and Ohio State too, these people have had their moments of legal problems, and we've never had that. That's never been an issue with Michigan. So before you rewrite history out there, just remember those kinds of things happen to the Alabamas of this world. And I would be, I'd just be careful where you go.
I agree. I agree with that totally. And when you take a look at the team, I'm not a football guy. You guys are two great offensive linemen. We got John Jansen, another offensive lineman out there. When you take a look at it, There we lost Mayfield. We lost, we lost Mayfield. We lost Haynes, the other offensive lineman. We've lost, Aubrey Thomas at the defensive spot. We had Kwity Paye hurt, Aiden Hutchinson hurt. When you put all those things together, I hate to make sound like excuses, but it's not easy. We lost Nico Collins and Shante Peoples. I mean, it's tough to replace those people.
Well, I think that it's not an excuse because you're supposed to be able to roll the new guys in and they got to step up. But just if you look at the team that took the field for Michigan last year, and then just take a look at what we had on the field against, say in the second half of Penn State. I think of the 22 starters we had from the year before, 18 of them were gone. And if you were trying to figure out who it was that we had out there on the field, yes, it's basically an entirely new Michigan football team. And yes, we have not played as well as any of us expected them to play. I guess we were thinner at some spots than we were hoping to be. And some of the people that we were hoping were going to take giant leaps haven't taken that leap yet. And yes, this has been a year that I will very much like to have in the rear view mirror.
Yeah, put an asterisk by Bruce. I'm with Dan on that one. One thing I will also say is that, football, Dan and I both believe this strongly because we were brought up this way. It's up in the line of scrimmage is where you do it, where you get it done. And offensively up front, we've had an unbelievable change up. We've got true freshmen moving to play center to left guard to right guard. We've had different guys moving in and out of the lineup. There's been no cohesion there. That's been a problem for the offense. And defensively, arguably 5 of the top 6 defenders that began the year, like Dan said, are not playing. And the youth that's coming in behind that, and it does sound like an excuse, but ultimately good players make good plays. And experienced players are better than inexperienced players. And they have an opportunity to play better. And that's where I think this team has come down. So, yeah, we're both disappointed. All of us, everybody out there in Wolverine Nation is disappointed. But it is what it is. And you got to get through it. I don't think you jump ship either.
Before I turn this over to Jason Cummings so he can have the alumni clubs talk and ask some other questions out there from the people, I do want to ask both of you one question, and either one of you can answer it. Okay, what is the difference between playing tackle and guard on the offensive line?
I will defer to my elder partner, Dan Dudorf.
Playing guard sometimes is like playing bumper cars because you're doing combination blocks with the center a lot of the time. And then sometimes they're doing combination blocks with the tackle. There are more situations during a football game where the tackle is all by himself in his responsibilities. A lot of times in the middle, it's 3 against 2, but normally it's the offensive tackle, the defensive end, they're locked up one-on-one. It's a little bit like playing cornerback. If you make a mistake out there on the edge, it's very difficult to recover from it. And to me, that's the biggest difference.
And I'll add to that in most instances, especially at the NFL level, the best defenders in the line of scrimmage are those edge rushers, those guys out there that the tackle has to deal with on a one-on-one basis.
A guard never has to deal with getting down in his stance and looking at the guy that he's supposed to block lined up 3 yards outside of him.
Yeah. And
in a track stance, getting ready to blaze off the corner, and you've got to cut him off at the pass. Those are the kind of situations that guards don't have to deal with.
All right. Right now, I'm going to turn this over to from the Football Alumni of Michigan, Jason Cummings, who's done a lot of the public relations and has put most of these things together. And Jason, you've got some club presidents and a couple of other football players, former football players out there that want to ask a couple of questions. So, Jason, I'll turn it over to you so you can handle that.
All right. Thanks a lot. And, Jim and Dan, thank you so much for jumping on the call today. I'm just sitting back, getting drawn into the conversation, learning so much about Michigan history. And it's just great to hear. And we'll start off with the club leader. And, this is significant. This is Ron Raymer, and it's a very unique story. Ron is a military serviceman, and he participated in the home gate, the virtual homecoming, a little while ago. And Ron graduated in aero engineering, and he flew helicopters for a career. And there's a video that he really did that's cool. And he did a video in front of a structure as part of, something for homecoming. And it's the new USS Gerald R. Ford aircraft carrier. So, if we've got that video, let's go ahead before Ron asks his question, and let's play the video.
We're standing on the quay wall at Naval Station, Norfolk, Virginia, in front of the Navy's newest aircraft carrier, USS Gerald R. Ford. It was named for the center on the University of Michigan's national championship football team in 1932 and 33. He also joined the Navy in World War II, and he became the only president from the state of Michigan. On behalf of the University of Michigan Club of Tidewater, go Blue!
Thank you, Ron. You want to go ahead and unmute yourself and ask your question?
Okay, thanks. Yeah, I appreciate the opportunity. I guess the question I had is, I was standing in front of Gerald R. Ford, which is the most technologically advanced ship ever built. And it's had some challenges, but they're getting through them. And so my question really relates to the same thing. We look at Dan Deerdorf and Jim Brandstatter, and I guess they were playing with, you weren't playing with leather helmets back then, but the technology back then was certainly different. And you saw that throughout your pro career as well. So my real question for you is, how do you think technology has changed the game of football over the course of the last 40 years, or even over the last 10 years? Things have changed pretty dramatically. You see the coaches out in the pros anyway with Microsoft Surfaces and the communication back and forth, and it just seems like it's almost a different game.
Well, I'll start with that. I got to live through the evolution of the helmet, going from the old suspension helmet to the helmets that were filled with air packets, where you could actually put like you were filling a basketball. You could fill your helmet to conform to the shape of your head, and it really was a lot better in terms of softening the blow. To me, the biggest technological change has been the playing surface. I would have given anything to play on the field turf that the players, that's the field that most programs use now, with the ground up rubber chips. And let me tell you something. When I played at Michigan Stadium, we were on that tartan turf. Oh. And then I played on AstroTurf, which was, either one of those surfaces was nothing more than asphalt with a piece of indoor-outdoor carpeting rolled over the top of it. And I can just tell you, every one of my teammates is basically in the same boat I'm in. We were crippled by that playing surface, that old AstroTurf. So for me, that's the biggest single change to me, is the playing surface. And secondly, I have one question for you. I have a pontoon boat up in northern Michigan. Now, what's bigger, that aircraft carrier or my pontoon boat? Because I can get 14 people on my pontoon boat.
Well, I think the aircraft carrier is a tad bigger.
Really?
I think, as I recall, they're around 1,100 feet long. weighs 100,000 tons, carries about 5,000 people. I spent a lot of years on aircraft carriers. I did 8 deployments over the 30-year period, of course, the 30-year period. And they actually end up looking pretty small by the end of a 6-month deployment. But
I don't think I could. I don't think I could get that in my slip.
No, you have a problem.
Probably not.
Hey, Ron, first of all, from all of us who are here today, thank you so much for your service. Thank you so much for dedicating yourself to our country. We appreciate that very much. You're just as big and important a Michigan man as all the rest of us, so thank you. And the other thing, in regards to the technology, Dan is right about the surface and the equipment, but I think also it's like anything else. Is information services have gotten so crazy with the internet and the speed with which you can inundate players and coaches with information, and they've broken it all down. It's like people and coaches have staff that do statistics about what happens on 3rd and short, what happens on 3rd and long, right hash, left hash, the whole 9 yards. That information is disseminated real quickly and evenly to all the players. And I think that's one of the important things. And I think weight training, there's been a tremendous increase in weight training and nutrition that has made the players bigger, stronger, faster. And that has also changed the game to some degree. So technology, in my opinion, like Dan had mentioned, not only the physical changes, but also that information and getting the players to a certain point physically, they've all been part of improving the game and making the game faster, stronger, and better than it was 40 years ago.
Thanks, Ron. And thanks, Jim and Dan. So before we go to our next question, we're going to go to a former player, but I just want to let everyone know that there's 3 principles that we really lead by in FAM. And one is empowerment. And empowerment means getting guys life skills and the tools they need to be successful. So we've got FAM Matters, which is a virtual series, which we talk about topics like mental health, physical health, diet, CTE, and other things. And then we got our teammate assistance program, where we have a list of volunteers that provides assistance to players, and it's a discrete operation for that. Then the last thing is unity, what you're seeing today. So you're seeing people from different eras, speaking. We're going to bring in some other players, but this is kind of what FAM is all about. And upcoming, we got a really cool partnership that we're doing with Rewind that's sponsored by Charles Woodson and Desmond Howard. And it's really to help people achieve weight loss results that often lead to diabetes. So wanted to let you guys know about that. And the next question, we're going to bring in a former football player, Julius Curry. Julius is doing some cool things these days. We'll let him tell you about what he's doing. Julius, you can turn your camera on and unmute yourself and tell everyone, kind of what you're up to before you ask your question. Are you there, Julius?
Julius, isn't Julius doing the NASCAR stuff?
Unmute yourself. Yeah.
Hey guys, how's everything going?
Hey, good. You're still doing NASCAR, aren't you?
Hey man, I'm doing some. I'm getting back into motorsports this 2020 season coming up. I'm looking at probably getting into some IMSA. So NASCAR purchased IMSA in March, so it was looking like I'll be probably getting in some IMSA full time next year. So
well, good for you. I'm glad to see you in the motorsports industry. You've been killing it.
Oh man, I'm trying. It's trying to lead guys to a different opportunity and provide opportunities in the community where I grew up in Detroit, and also just provide opportunities for guys that former players that transition into new things in with their lives.
Good for you.
Yeah. So the question I had was, and I think it's a pretty good question because I know a lot of guys in the 96 and 97 talked about what you guys were talking about with your coach is. Did you guys really enjoy working with Bo even once you got to Michigan as your head coach? And I know that Bump recruited you guys, and I know that's who you guys wanted to play for. But was it difficult coming there and playing for Bo once you guys made that decision?
Dan, I think this one's good for you.
Well, they were such different styles, Julius. I'll say this. I really liked Bump Elliott. I was terrified of Bo Schembechler.
Me too.
I didn't even want to make eye contact with Bo Schembechler. And so he was, he commanded respect in a different way. Bo worked us harder than I ever thought I could be worked. And, he taught us all a valuable lesson that we're all capable of doing more than we think we are. And if Bo had an attribute, that was one of his very best, that he was able to push you. He was able to prod you, kick you in the butt, whatever it took. But you just found yourselves doing things that you didn't think you were capable of doing. And that's what made Bo, I think, an extraordinary coach.
And one other thing too, which I think is interesting in interpersonal relationships, Dan and I are from a group that first got there when Bo first got there. He put us through more than we could even imagine, physically and mentally. But we stayed with it. And at the end of his life, and he said this up to the day he died, he was closer to that group in the '69 team, his first group, because they bought him. They stayed with him when he was at his most demanding. And he really appreciated that. And we became, I think Dan would agree, probably his closest group, his closest teams, that he would vacation with them. He would go play golf with them. And yet he treated us probably worse than any other group. And yet we were as close to him when we graduated as any of his teams. It's an interesting dynamic, but I think Dan would agree that that's kind of the way it went.
Wow, that's great. I mean, when I played with Lloyd, it was kind of cool because Bo was right down the hallway, and it was like it was still Bo's team, It was like I think I got cussed out more about Bo than I did Lloyd.
I heard somebody one time describe the Michigan coaching changes when Lloyd was there, and they said, well, let's be realistic. The coach has never changed at Michigan. It's just the guy's name is Bo Mokar.
Yes. Yes.
I mean, seriously, from Bo to Gary to Lloyd was seriously now we're looking at minute little differences between
right. Yeah, man, and I love seeing you guys, hearing you guys on here, man. Brad Statter and Deardolph and Bruce, to see you guys on here and giving the guys opportunity to come back and be a part of University of Michigan in our own little way.
Julius, thanks very much, and good luck with the IMSA thing, man. I can't wish you a good big success in that.
Oh, thank you so much.
Yes, thanks, Julius. We appreciate you, and we'll have to bring you back on to do some more stuff with FAM. But thanks a lot, man.
Okay, for sure. You guys.
All right,
All right, thanks.
All right, thanks. We're gonna go back. We're gonna go to another club leader, and this is from your neck of the woods here, Jim. But we're gonna bring in Dan Thompson from Lansing. Dan, why don't you go ahead and unmute yourself and ask your question.
Great, thanks. Can you hear me okay?
You can.
Awesome. Well, this is Dan Thompson, the president of the Lansing Club here, surviving on a day-to-day basis in the heart of Spartan country.
You have our sympathies.
I know. Oh, believe me, every day I wake up and I wonder how I'm going to get by. Well, this year was particularly bad, but we're not going to get into that right now. So I'd like to ask a question related to academics. And of course, Michigan's always been among the national leaders in terms of student athlete performance and academics and graduation rates. So I'm wondering what challenges you faced, Dan and Jim, and if you know what current players face in keeping up with the academic side of playing at U of M. And what are some strategies the players or the coaches use to maintain the balance?
I think one of the things that's most important, and I think this is what's absolutely fabulous about the University of Michigan and their athletic program, is that if there's a young man who has a trouble in a class or whatever, the University of Michigan athletic campus and group will put together tutors in any way possible to help that young man make his way through those struggles. And I think that's one of the greatest things that they do, because you've got to manage your time as a student athlete. more than anything. And they've got classes where kids manage their time and they teach them how, and then they will give them tutors and help. And I think that's tremendous. And I think that they have a leg up if you're an athlete at the University of Michigan. So the athletic department, in my opinion, does a great job in servicing the academic part of being a student athlete. At least that's my thing. And from a standpoint of moving forward, this kind of thing, the connection with FAM and the connection with other Michigan graduates is a tremendous help to anybody who does graduate, because they've got a leg up. They can talk to somebody who graduated from Michigan, and that person will, I think, open the door to anybody who has a degree from Michigan.
I think it's also important to remember that there are lots, and this is not to pat ourselves on the back too much, but Michigan standards are what they are. Their admission standards are what they are. And there are young men playing Power 5 football today that would not get into the University of Michigan. And I don't think that's ever going to change. And I don't think any of us want that to change. And there are, I'm sure there are some frustrations at times that maybe a coach brings somebody that, that the admissions department says, they're not a good fit. It's not going to work. And I don't know that I've always been proud of the fact that Michigan has standards, and I would like to see us keep them up for the future.
Thanks, Jim and Dan, and thanks for the question, Dan.
Yeah.
So we're going to go to the next club leader. This is we're going to go to Mike. Mike from Flint, from the Flint chapter. Mike, you want to unmute yourself and ask your question?
Yeah. Hey guys, thanks for taking your time out today. Appreciate it. My question for you is, one of the things that's always been kind of a topic of conversation has been quarterback. And we've got Joe Milton right now, Cade McNamara, and then next year we've got JJ McCarthy coming in. What does the future look like with those three in the quarterback position for our football team in the next 3 to 4 years?
From my perspective, coming in as freshmen, they've all got a tremendous reputation, 4 and 5 stars from recruiting services. So my belief is that we're in pretty good shape. But the one thing I will also say is that players, human beings, it's not an exact science. Some guys will get to that point and they can't get that next step going. Some guys like a Tom Brady, nobody thought he was going to do what he does, and yet he's able to somehow, some way, because of who he is, the intangibles, become one of the best quarterbacks the world has ever known. So from a standpoint of what we've got going, we don't know potential. It's hard to determine that, but based on what they bring to the table from high school and as young players, I think we're in decent shape. Now, the key is they've got to improve. They've got to be better tomorrow than they were today. They've got to be better 2 days from now than they were yesterday. And that's, I think, the key, the improvement and getting better and getting an offense that they can control and work with and succeed in. That's kind of where that question goes, at least from my perspective.
Well, I'm just going to add that we've all been waiting for somebody to take that position and grab it by the throat and make it mine. And just through the way they play, that I own this job and I'm going to own it for a couple of years. We're still waiting for that. And whether it's going to be Joe Milton or whether it's going to be Cade McNamara or whether next year it's going to be JJ McCarthy, somebody has to step up and take that job. Not just receive it because it was given to them. They've got to snatch it out of the air, take it, make it theirs, and hold on to it. And that we've been waiting for that for quite a while.
And you do that by performance.
Yeah.
Thanks. That was a great question. While we're going to bring in another former player after I ask you guys this question. I think Jared Bunch is in the attendees. We'll bring him in to talk to you guys. But before that, we had a question from Craig Dunaway, and Craig is the chair of our TAP committee, Teammate Assistance, and his question is: do you stay in touch with legendary assistant coach Jerry Hanlon?
Yeah, I do as much as I can, but I know Dan tries to. During the pandemic and everything, Jerry's been kind of scarce out there, and I understand it. But every time I get a chance, we see him at some Michigan function. Of late, there hasn't been much of that going on. But yeah, Craig, we do try to stay in touch.
That's one of the real disappointments of this year. We would see Jerry at every game. He'd be up in the booth. He would he'd do a radio segment from our booth, and it was we'd see him at Caldo's tailgate every game. So yeah, that's it's so surreal being at Michigan Stadium with nobody there when we're doing these games. And one of the biggest losses is, the excitement of 111,000 people there, but it's also the subtraction of the Jerry Hanlons of the world and not being able to see him on a weekly basis.
And the tailgates.
Yeah, Jerry is Jerry though. I will say this. He is a physical marvel.
Yes.
For his age, you could take Jerry around to a lot of county fairs and win a lot of stuffed animals by having people guess his age, because Jerry is looking damn good for a man his age. Now, I would never tell him that to his face, because he's already got an ego bigger than the Lower Peninsula, but he's a great man.
That's great. When we had our annual meeting last year for FAM, Jerry came on and kind of kicked things off and gave a speech, and everybody really loved it. So I don't see Jerry.
It must have lasted 45 minutes.
It was awesome. So it looks like we got Jared Bunch. He's getting on. But before we go to Jared, I'm going to ask a question here. Winston Kelly from DC. You can unmute yourself. And Winston, when I see your name, there's an initiative that we got. It is the Regional Ambassador Program. And we will definitely want to connect you with Steven, who's out there, Steven Johnson in that area. He's kicking things off. So I just love to make those connections with fans. And Winston, you want to go ahead and ask your question, and then we'll come back to Jared. You can unmute yourself, Winston.
I'd be happy to. This is Winston calling in from the University of Michigan DC chapter here. I'm curious, especially for Dan, if he could tell us a little bit about, during his pro career, some of his favorite or most feared, in some cases, Big Ten opposition. Because it changes when you're at Michigan. Obviously, you line up against these guys. You're playing against them week in, week out. Later on, some of them become your teammates. Some of them become your competition. And I'm curious if you could tell us a little bit about some of those other Big Ten athletes that were memorable from your pro career.
Well, I can tell you that two of them from that dreaded school in Columbus ended up being my teammates for years. A safety, Mike Sensabaugh, who played on that Buckeye team. And then I think you'll recognize this name, their fullback, Jim Otis. Jim lives about a half a mile from me. We were teammates for years with the Cardinals. And you realize that they're just regular guys just like us, even though they had the terrible judgment to go to that school in Columbus. But I will say this, Jim Otis has never gotten over getting beaten 69. I'm surprised he talks to me, because that's been a burr under his saddle for a long, long time. But, I'm trying to think of other, Doug Deacon, who played at Illinois, played for the Cleveland Browns for years. I always I always had a lot of fun with Deacon because I know my 3 varsity years. We beat Illinois 55, 57, and 36 to nothing. I mean, it was shutout 3 consecutive years. I only wished I was a defensive player, so I could have taken some credit for that.
All right. Thank you. We're going to get to Jared. Jared.
Yeah.
Good to see you, my friend.
It's good to see you too.
Hey, Jared, what's your latest acting credit, man? What shows you been on?
COVID.
Oh, COVID.
Well, I hope it's not a sparring role.
I was going to say
Nothing's going on. COVID, nothing's going on. Nothing.
That's too bad.
Yeah, it is too bad. But one question that I came up with is this. I'm from Ohio. I live out here in California, and it is very hard for me to fight and show everyone and tell everyone the greatest rivalry in college football when the last 10 years it's been one-sided. What do you give me something? Give me something that I can tell the people that the Michigan-Ohio State rivalry is the greatest college rivalry in football when we've been on the short end for the last 10, 12 years.
I wish it had only been 10 or 12.
Yeah. It's hard when you don't win, Jared. And like I said, the only thing I can say about that is in order to make it back to be that right, we got to beat them. And I think the one thing that I will, and it goes back to a question earlier, Ohio State has had the quarterbacks. They have done a great job at that position. And that's kind of been, in my opinion, the real big difference there in what's happened over the years. But it's a great rivalry. It always will be. Maybe it's a little sleepy, a little snoozy right now because Michigan hasn't held it's part of the bargain. But until we win, you're going to have to fight that battle.
It didn't help that Urban Meyer's from Ashtabula too. He's from my hometown.
That hurts.
Yeah.
No, it's we bear the responsibility. We're going to have to take it. They're never going to give it to us, and you have to give the devil their due. Ohio State is on an extraordinary run, and they aren't doing it with smoke and mirrors and a bunch of tricks. They have every year a top 2 or a top 3 national recruiting class. And the reality is they have a roster. They're just deeper than everybody else in the Big Ten, and they're deeper than most schools in college football. They're recruiting. Let's not kid ourselves. They win because the horses they put on the field, and they have quality, and they have quality backing up quality. And that's, that makes them elite. I'm sorry, but they've been on a hell of a run.
And Dan and I have a game we play sometimes where you say, okay, if that guy were on our team, who would we play from our team that could make their starting lineup? And we have a game that we play like that. And over the last few years, I got to tell you what, it's pretty sparse, the number of players that we thought we could get in and start on the Ohio State starting 22.
No more than a handful.
I've always had a second question. And a lot of people ask me, what did Michigan, when I was playing, because my record at Michigan against Ohio State was 4. We beat them 4 out of the 5 times I was there. And they asked, oh, so you got your gold charm or I said, gold charm, what are you talking about? I said, well, Ohio State, every time they beat Michigan, they get gold pants or put on a chain. Like we got nothing. We expected to beat Ohio State every year. That was it. That was what we got. How is it that Ohio State can receive gifts gifts just for beating us. Is that legal? Let me report it right now. Let's get a report.
I think there's somebody in Michigan wants to wear a charm bracelet. So if they want to have little tickets for their charm bracelets, good for them.
And I got a real quick story I would tell about Jared. I did Michigan replay for a lot of years. And whenever Jared was playing for Michigan, and you know this, Jared, you know what I'm going to tell you. Bo Schembechler used to call him Gerard.
You got my name wrong for so long.
You got your name wrong for 5 years.
5 years.
Until he graduated. He kept calling him. Then we got a big run by Gerard Bunch. And I'm sitting there next to him going, it's Jared. It's Jared. He would never change it.
True. Good to see you guys.
Good seeing you.
Stay out there.
Great to see you, Gerard.
Oh, hey, I went by that.
Hey, thanks.
Hey, guys, I'm going to have to run.
Yeah, and you know what, Dan, I want to thank you and Jim for being on today and going with for the whole hour. I really do appreciate it. You guys are great. It's fun to be in the booth with you. I'm sure the fans love listening to you because I know I do when I'm sitting up there. You guys really add a lot to the game.
Hey, it's good to have you along with us, Bruce. And hopefully next week we'll be in the booth. We can broadcast that Michigan-Ohio State game. And thanks to everybody on the FAM virtual tailgate today. I'm glad we had a chance to do this.
Me too. It's
thank you guys so much.
Hey, it's a wonderful organization, and you know we've got each other. Let's take care of each other and let's nurture this organization, Jason. Let's keep this going, and every year make it bigger and better than the year before.
Gentlemen,
Dan,
thanks.
Thank you, Dan. Thank you so much.
See you guys later.
Appreciate it.
All right, see you, Jim. See you, Dan. See you next week.
You got it. Bye-bye.
Okay, bye. Jason, you got any last things to say about FAM? I was going to have you close up, talk a little bit about the group, but is there anything you already had mentioned it? But is there anything you want to add?
Yeah, well, I just want to recap, those three things. We're all about empowerment, teammate assistance and unity. And we're looking forward to growing this relationship with the Alumni Association. And we're just looking forward to growing regionally. So thanks, everyone, for joining. I'll kick it back to Bruce, but I know we've got the James Earl Jones alumni video to take us out. Even though there isn't a game today, I think everybody really felt the spirit of Michigan. And that's what FAM is all about, capturing what we felt today. And I'll kick it back to you, Bruce.
Jason, thanks for all your help. Mike Carty, by the way, from Cleveland, did ask a question about DJ Durkin, and I figured I'd get back to him on that. Where is DJ right now, our former assistant coach? DJ is the co-defensive coordinator and linebacker coach with Lane Kiffin down at Ole Miss. So we've got that. So I wanted to make sure that Mike got that answer in there so we could go from there. Again, I want to thank FAM, especially Jason and Mike Martin and Craig Dunaway, all the guys down there. The football alums are special. All of our alums, the letter winners, and everybody who's played and been to the University of Michigan. There is something special about this university, and it's just great to be a part of it and to be able to promote it. And I'm really happy about it. And all I can say is I hope everybody has a wonderful day. I hope we can play Ohio State next week. I hope we can beat them. And go blue, and let's hear from James Earl Jones.
This is the University of Michigan.
What a football game we're going to have here this afternoon.
You are looking live at a sold-out
103,000.
Michigan Stadium in Ann Arbor.
And the football game from Ann Arbor.
The nation will rock with the praises of the Maize and Blue this evening.
Where we respect integrity and honor excellence.
The jubilation and cheering long into the night.
Here come the Wolverines.
We are loyal Wolverines.
Today, your football team is #1 in the country, and it's all right here.
Standing for Midwestern values, hard work, determination, and an enthusiasm unknown to mankind.
The old season is over. It's going to be Michigan again.
We are the best university in the world. Students and athletes and professors achieving at the highest level. You better believe it. This is our legacy and our future. We are proud members of the Big Ten Conference in pursuit of national championships.
We'll win this championship!
We have won more games than any team in the country. No one has won more. We believe in football. We did it! Championship football.
He has got the Celebrant.
McClellan up in the air. Touchdown! Touchdown, Billy Taylor! Shoelaces flopping in the wind.
We shy away from no challenge or opponent.
Brady.
We bow to no man. We bow to no program. We are Michigan.